Yeah, it looks like
Huge army coming up again.
worker units still in the favor of the Protoss. That harassment that took place, and will an EMP be able to go down? No, these storms are actually going to do the job this time for the Protoss. The Marauders will be pretty damaged here, and they will manage to survive. I'm surprised that these zealots back here didn't come in, because they could have mopped up a lot of these Marauders. Caught out there with his reinforcements not available for him, and MaNa is probably cursing himself right now.
Yeah, those zealots were just being warped in at the end of the battle, so looks like he's gonna, or MaNa, the Protoss, gonna bide his time a little bit and use that warp gate technology, which is so great at quickly building forces, to just get another large force to hit Naama with.
Still going with tons and tons of High Templars, more zealots being warped in. Maybe his unit, his army consistency and makeup will be a little bit different from here on out. But still a lot of High Templar out on the board. I don't know if he's planning on warping in more, but I think he needs to move. Not completely away from the High Templar, but away from them in such large numbers, so that if the High Templar plan does fail with the good Ghost play, then he can transition to something else. But right now, these High Templar are just going to mosey on into the Terran base, completely uncontested, with medevacs containing the bulk of the units in the southern part of the map. But an EMP drop from a Ghost there is going to effectively ruin these High Templar once again. And as soon as the Terrans farm down these three Immortals, it's going to be a simple job of mopping up these Protoss corpses, cleaning off the floors, and getting back to business for this Terran base.
Yeah, the attack happening at the gold expansion was successful. The Nexus went down, and now MaNa a little bit behind on economy. Well, with more probes but less bases. So
yeah, more probes, but losing that gold mineral expansion, while Naama meanwhile is mining it to full capacity, even having a planetary fortress on there to really give it some extra oomph. His economy is definitely rocking and rolling right now, and yeah, I mean the Protoss is hurting. I hope that he has the foresight to transition away from High Templar. Still, quite a few High Templars out on the board, more than you usually see. I mean, even 6 or 7 is quite a lot. We've seen 15, 16 at different parts of this match. Still more of them being made. Still more Immortals. It's
opting to attack his own destructible rocks, but then turning away to defend the Zalnaga Tower, I suppose. I'd like to see this nuke come out onto the board. It's been built for quite some time, so if the Blue Terran, whatever his name is, can find a good time to strike, we may see a nuke.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just been hanging out in the siloed for a long time now, not really having much to do. The Ghost, though, is still having a tremendous effect on this High Templar play from MaNa. This Observer likely going to go down to the Ravens. Oh my God, it's going to sneak away, and that's a shame for Naama. Is he going to grab it with the Ghost? Jesus, it's going to manage to stay alive. This Observer, MaNa doesn't even know it's being threatened. It's literally only auto-pathing its way out of danger. And the luckiest Observer you will ever meet. Now MaNa's going to take control of it, try to see what he can see, but these Ghosts probably going to get it down here. No, it's going to survive. The luckiest and most resilient Observer you will ever see in the history of StarCraft 2.
Well,
couple
that
of storms
Observer
now.
Finally was supported by an entire Protoss army.
Going to much heavier Marauder composition here for Naama, which is exactly why the storms are going to stop being as effective as they were perhaps in the beginning of the game. Nuke being teased there by Naama, but then being cancelled, seeing that maybe that wasn't the best place to put it. MaNa realizing that the nuke and the brunt of these Marauders were going to push him back, going to move his army away from there. So the nuke is going to have no effect.
Wasted? It seems like the nuke is gone from the units panel now, so it looks like you can't cancel a nuke. Is that the case?
I guess that is the case. In my experience, I haven't gone through that, but yeah, it looks like the case. Either the canceled nuke,
it was
nuke
launched, but it just flew off into space and it never found its target or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. I think that if you cancel a nuke, it does go away. Nukes aren't that expensive, so it is it is kind of a failed failed nuke there, and but
Yeah, it's just the time they take to build that is their primary cost.
Naama here doing a little bit more harassment on this southern expansion that he's already torn through a couple of times now. A few probes trying to get what they can out of it, but looks like this is doom and gloom for this expansion. The Protoss still doing well to maintain the income that he needs to keep him in the game. In fact, tipping over blue quite readily here as far as the income, especially gas, is concerned, with just the sheer number of expansions. The gold mineral expansion doing great for Naama as far as minerals, but the gas expenditure for the Protoss looks like it's been a lot higher than the Terrans for most of the game, and that's keeping them in here.
Yep, both armies exactly the same size a moment ago. Protoss just coming out slightly ahead with a couple more units being warped in, and now another clash is going to happen at MaNa's gold expansion in a moment.
Yeah, Terran feeling maybe a little bit unsure. Only got 1 or 2 siege tanks there, trying to draw the Protoss back in it. I love that there's Archons out on the field, but probably not enough of them. I like when a Protoss who goes with a High Templar build like this converts them to Archons late in the game. But it looks like with the proximity of the pylons for the Protoss here, he is going to be able to reinforce this and get rid of these Terran units pushing out here from the Xel'Naga Watchtower. And
It's going to be close. These zealots are nearly dead. A couple more Terran reinforcements coming in, but it's just not enough. The Protoss quickly reinforcing.
With the ability to warp in so close, he will be able. You know, they're both going to suffer pretty significant losses on both sides, but the Protoss will be able to defend this gold mineral expansion, and on top of that, start taking out this kind of cheeky. Expansion here for the Terran, which he put in pretty close proximity to the Protoss. I don't know what his strategy there was. Still had some pretty decent choices for expansions, much nearer to his base.
It looked like Naama only had 1 SCV. I didn't see that expansion for long, but it looked like he only had 1 SCV, just going back and forth there. I guess it was sort of a scouting expansion. He knew that he would probably lose it, but he could hold on to it, preventing MaNa from having it for as long as he,
Yeah, I mean, manages to save the command center and is now floating it back. I don't really know if I agree with this strategy by Naama the Terran. I mean, I feel like he could just re-up and go over here to the more northerly western expansion, but I don't know.
Well, that command center would take like 5 minutes to fly there, so there's likelihood the game may be over by that time.
That is true. You're probably right. Going to try to get as many mules and as much mining as he can out of it. Probably feels like this game is winding down. Good amount of storms going down here, and doesn't seem to be any ghosts out available. There's one somewhere on the board for the Terran. There it is, coming in now a little bit late. The EMP. Not gonna. There it is. Gonna go down. Gonna take down most of the energy on these High Templars. One of them will have enough energy to storm though, and that's gonna be pretty much all she wrote for that Terran force. Like I said, Archons coming out here. Great addition to a late game. They're effectively tanks for the Protoss army. Something that a lot of Protoss army composition lacks when you have Ultralisks and you have, powerful siege tanks and mech coming out for Terrans. I love to see Protoss coming out with a large amount of Archons. It's very, very hard to push back.
Yeah, it seems that Archons, while they're morphing, have a high amount of armor or something. They seem to be pretty tough to destroy while they're blending together.
Absolutely. It's much in the same vein as when you're morphing an observer into an overseer. Very, very hard to kill. It's like they were in a shield cocoon or whatever, and it's a great strategy to save High Templar who are totally out of energy, to just immediately morph them. And things not looking good here for the Terran. I thought that
Naama moving his force away, running away with Stim. These Marines and Marauders are going to try to find some refuge, but they'll find that there's no more army waiting for them. And
it looks
there
like
comes the GG.
No more refuge for these Marines and Marauders, and no more refuge for the Finn. Naama looks like MaNa, the green Protoss, going to take this Go for StarCraft Cup 2 last Wednesday. Team Liquid's replay of the week, and pretty entertaining back and forth game. In fact, this is very, very similar to a game I played recently, where I had all the confidence in the world in my Terran ingenuity and my ghosts and my siege tanks, and Archons just really pushed and pushed and pushed, and then the game kind of just gets away from you
So it was
without.
the Archon. It was the infiltration of the Archon that eventually took the game away from you.
Yeah, I mean the transition from away from just stalkers, as you may have noticed, almost no stalkers in the second half of the match at all.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, there
Uh,
are no stalkers on the board right now, as far as I can see. Yeah,
recognized
none at
that
all.
recognized that air superiority was not an aim of the Terran, and that the
Mhm.
Archons, the few Archons that he had, and the Storms would be able to take out the Medivacs to great effect, which they did. Perhaps if the Terran had continued to build Banshees, which he tried to do at the beginning, but then more or less stopped using, could have pressured the Stalkers and the Immortals and whatnot. But just really a beefy, tough to kill composition for the Protoss, and all of a sudden the tables turn on the Terran, and I've seen it time and time again. Really well executed here from MaNa,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I feel like the Terran had an advantage at a few times during the game, right? But the Terran philosophy is always to be defensive. So, I feel like maybe Naama could have pushed a couple times when he didn't.
Right.
It requires, I suppose, unsieging your siege tanks, moving up your line, but I feel like there were some opportunities back in the middle of the game where doing so could have won him the game at the time. So,
Yeah, I
um,
mean, it's just that confidence factor that Terrans have when they are being defensive, and you feel like, okay, I've got the advantage. I'm going to work on my minerals. I'm going to work on teching, and eventually I'll have an army that can't be defeated. And then all of a sudden the tides are turning, and you've got these big beefy units that are just so hard to kill. Not to mention the storms coming in and out. Very hard to micro ghosts effectively. He did it the first encounter beautifully. Really just kind of put the Protoss off his game, but eventually the Storms were just too much, surrounded by those beefier units, and just a really excellent play, I think, from MaNa.
yeah, absolutely. And I think also Nama could have put some more ghosts in the composition. Ghosts are just amazing against Archons, having no armor whatsoever, just entirely being made up of shields.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the Terran's main deficiencies was that he was so lacking on gas compared to the Protoss. Maybe not lacking, but the Protoss's gas gathering rate allowed him to get those High Templar and the Archons and all that stuff out in greater numbers than the Terran was able to get ghosts out and stuff like that. And anyway, well played by both players, but MaNa really impressive here, winning
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Go for StarCraft 2 Cup, ESL Cup bi-weekly tournament last Wednesday, and it was a great game, I think. And on behalf of myself, Jadius, Bayes, and the Wood League, we thank you for tuning in, and more great videos on the way, and we will see you guys next time.